For those of you in the audience, there's a special village board meeting scheduled for 8 p.m. in this room immediately following our meeting this evening. So hopefully we'll be able to adjourn our meeting prior to that meeting. Candace, could you please call the roll?
Chris Lacacious, Don Mitchell,
Here.
Eileen Creeman,
Here.
Barack Backo, Kevin O'Donnell,
Here.
Lynn McGarry,
Here.
Joe Mass.
Here. Thank you. Okay, we have a quorum. The next section of the meeting is on public comments. We'll ask anyone that's in the audience here at the hall tonight if you wish to speak on some item that's not on the agenda tonight, but does reflect some matter that concerns the planning commission. So it's time for public comments. Hearing none, we'll go on to the next section would be minutes. We do not have any minutes tonight to approve for this evening. And so we'll go on to the agenda items, which are just one agenda item. We have one agenda item, it's a public hearing. We'll need to swear in any persons that wish to speak tonight regarding the item on the agenda. So Mike would ask that Mike would swear in anyone that wishes to speak tonight. If you just stand up.
Just going to say I do after the following statement. Please raise your right hand and say I do. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Thank you.
And so this first item is item number F1, case number HG 1610-SP. The applicant is H&V LLC for the property commonly known as Lot 3 in the Homertown Square subdivision, located on the west side of Bell Road, north of 143rd Street, Homer, Glen, Illinois. Mike, could you please present this case?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, members of the audience. My name is Mike Schwartz, I'm Director of Planning and Zoning for the village. I'd just like to make an announcement that we do have some not a PowerPoint, but we've got some slides if there are any questions as I finish the presentation. And then we're going to let the applicant kind of add anything to that presentation. But I may be switching seats just to let you know. I might have to run over there because the laptop's connected there. So in your packet is a series of requests by the applicant for, first of all, an amendment to a prior issued special use permit, which would be considered a major change to a planned development known as the Homertown Square Shopping Center. The second, related to that, is a site plan, or what we call the preliminary/final development plan for Lot 3, which is the outlot. And then there's a request for approving a special use permit for a drive-through establishment associated with one of the uses in that building. And then there's a special use permit for outdoor seating associated with the 2 restaurants that are proposed in that building. I'm not going to read them for sake of time, but in your packet is a series of findings of fact which the zoning ordinance requires the Plan Commission to make in presenting its recommendation to the village board. You're at liberty to make changes to those findings that staff has suggested. We are finding favorable to the applicant in each of the 3 zoning actions that is before you. And those are, again, right out of the code, point by point. So what I'm going to do is just summarize, for sake of time, what they're requesting. The property is, if you're not familiar, it should be, it's a 2-unit commercial building that's proposed. One unit would be for a Starbucks restaurant with a drive-through attached on the side. And then the other space would be for a Chipotle restaurant. The property is located on outlot B2. It's actually platted as Lot 3 in the Homertown Square subdivision. There is a location map and an aerial photo in your packet. And there are also, the very last attachment of your staff report, there are photographs of the site. The site overall, the shopping center, is 16.31 acres. The outlot is about 0.6 acres after it's reconfigured for replatting, and I'll talk about that in a minute. It's zone C3, the entire shopping center is zone C-3, which is the general commercial designation. And surrounding zoning is pretty much commercial in each direction, with the exception to the west. The Goodings Grove School is still zone A1 agriculture. There's a series of attachments. I'm not going to, go through them unless there are questions. But essentially what they've given is a site plan, details of their trash enclosure, the elevations for their outdoor seating area. There's a signed site plan with some details, a landscape plan, exterior building elevations, which are also shown on the board up there in color. And then you've got a material board, if there are any questions about the materials, which are basically going to be the same materials that are used on the existing shopping center. What is not in your packet is the civil engineering drawings. Those are very detailed. Those are the grading and stormwater and utilities and all that kind of thing that's usually reviewed by staff. And also there's initially a plat of re-subdivision was submitted for the application, is still part of the application. The applicant has requested that that item not be considered for a vote. One of the conditions you'll see attached to the first request is a request to basically defer to for timing reasons, have the property re-subdivided to reflect the right-of-way that will be taken by the Will County Bell Road widening project, and reconfigure the shape of outlots 3 and 4, which is the Dairy Queen building to the south. Do that later, and the condition would reflect that. So basically they're asking to allow them to build the building, which part of their parking lot would encroach the current lot line to the rear, closer to Davidson's. But they would then, as a condition, or the condition we've suggested and the board would be asked as well, is to allow them to replat that lot after, essentially within a certain time frame, basically prior to the first occupancy permit is issued for whether it be Starbucks or Chipotle. They're the developers, they're going to build the building, and then they have lease agreements with Starbucks and with Chipotle to use those spaces that they're creating. So this would just be, they're going to replat, but they're asking to basically defer that down the road, timing-wise, so that they can start on the construction of the building, and then agree to come in with a plat that would come back for you to look at, as well as the village board. And the timing is related to the Will County Highway or Department of Transportation. Kind of summarizing again the different things that are being requested. They're kind of give you a little bit of history. The property was annexed by the village in 2002, and at that time the applicants willingly entered into an annexation agreement with the village. The village was desirable. It was desirable that this whole shopping center be part of the village, obviously for sales tax reasons and so forth. So their annexation agreement is in your packet, and it's also been, it'll be presented, it's in the village board packet as well. The annexation agreement does have some language in it, which you probably saw. There's a letter from Menards seeking that, I don't know if it was put in your packet, it's in the village board packet. It came in late in the day as we were putting packets together. But basically the Menards is seeking cross-access be a condition of this project. Well, the annexation agreement, both for Menards, they have their own annexation agreement, and Homer Town Square, are somewhat, there's no requirement that cross-access be provided at any certain time. It just says both that the parties agree to work with the village to get cross-access between the two projects. There's some discussions over the years that have taken place, I'm sure the applicant can talk about. At this time, staff is not recommending any additional condition that would force that, because the annexation agreement is still continuing, and it's pretty clear that the annexation agreement is the governing document, that it's a 20-year annexation agreement, and it does allow them basically to continue working with the other party to try and reach an agreement. Certainly the village is willing to be to try and help facilitate those discussions between the two different developments and how we can make that happen. but we're not, staff is not recommending at this time any condition that would force the connection and put the cost solely on this applicant before you this evening. Just as a side note, the Menards development to the north has its own zoning action that's pending that will be on the next regular Plan Commission meeting in July. And they're doing some site changes to expand the footprint of their building and some of the storage area to the back, the lumberyard area. So that'll be a similar type of project where they're going to change their plan development, come through you for site plan approval, and then go on to the village board. I just wanted to throw that out there, that we will continue, staff will continue working with both parties to see if there's a way, a plan that can be put in place to make some type of cross-access happen. As far as the ordinance review, you have a major change is considered in the ordinance as anything that alters the street configuration, the parking, the governing agreements, the layout, the architecture. This is considered a major change because there never was an official site plan approved for this outlot. In the annexation agreement, I will mention, it's in your packet, one of the exhibits to the annexation agreement is a conceptual site plan for, at the time, what was going to be a Dominic's fueling center with a freestanding drive-through car wash. And the annexation agreement, basically the village was pre-approving that site plan, that conceptual site plan for Dominic's at any time that they should so choose to come forward with it. It becomes a moot point because now we have an actual development proposal with signed lease agreements. So it's just, I put it in, it's in there, you may have seen it, but it's essentially in the position of where this outlot is. The zoning ordinance requires a special use permit for a drive-through facility or drive-through establishment, as the code refers to it. And it requires a minimum of 3 stacking or parking spaces waiting in the drive-through line. This project is providing 7. So there's queuing for 7 vehicles in line for the drive-through. There's also in our zoning ordinance a special use permit required anytime in a restaurant or there's any type of outdoor seating. In this case, there are 2 tenant spaces as I've described. They each have their own front seating area facing Bell Road, so right in front of the storefront. There would be 3 small bistro tables with 6 total seats for each of the, so 12 total seats in front of the building with a fence enclosure. There are gaps in the fence enclosure only where the center walkway coming into the building, and I believe at each end where you would come off the parking lot into the space. We're still working with the client or with the applicant on how that will work safely. I've been to other Starbucks where it's a complete enclosure and you can only come in and out of the building. You know, those are things we can still work with the applicant, but I think we have to provide some type of pedestrian access into the building. So if you look at if you study the site plan, you'll see there are several breaks where that fence enclosure is. And those are details that staff can continue working with the applicant on as we move forward through the review process. This is expedited, due to construction timing. They're looking for approval from the Village Plan Commission tonight, or a recommendation of approval, and then they're looking for the special meeting at 8 o'clock would be the Village Board consideration of the project. So there are some, the Plan Commission doesn't typically get into lighting, but I'll just mention the applicant's plans that are currently in your packet. There's some missing information, and they've willingly and verbally several times indicated they're going to comply with the village's site lighting ordinance, exterior lighting ordinance. There are only 2 new parking lot poles proposed for this new lot, but they need to tweak the lighting emission from those fixtures, so they might need to make some changes to the drawings that are actually in your packet. So one of the conditions on the first request is that that staff's technical review is necessary prior to construction of the project. And then the other, of course, I mentioned before, is the timing of the subdivision plat, which would reconfigure the shape of this outlot. In terms of parking, I should back up, there are 8 variances listed in your packet for the site. The foremost is the parking. The village code requires parking based on the employee count of a restaurant as well as the number of seats. So doing the math on the number of seats that they have, they're required to have 41 spaces on their site. They're showing 31 on the plan, so they're seeking a variation. However, they have a pre-existing shared parking easement agreement with all the lots in the shopping center that was set up back when the property was subdivided originally. And that gives rights of access to anybody who would park in the shopping center, the right to park anywhere else. And as I mentioned in the report, they are actually over in terms of parking for what's required for the entire shopping center. So even though on site they're 10 spaces short, middle paragraph of page 7, I indicate that the shopping center with the McDonald's included, because that is a separate subdivision that hasn't yet occurred, but it was approved. There are 796 parking stalls in the shopping center right now today, and they're required under our code to have 715. So there is a code surplus of parking. There's 81 extra parking spaces per what the code requires. I mentioned as a note in the packet that the future Will County Department of Transportation right-of-way acquisition, which is going to affect numerous property owners up and down Bell Road, would impact about 90 or so parking stalls along Bell Road. However, the applicant has the ability on site to reconfigure parking and move drive aisles, and so the net loss may actually be less than the 90. And I said before, there are 81 spaces over in terms of the code, and even if worst case scenario, Will County affected 90 parking spaces, it would still just about be at a net balance of what they're required to provide. And I think they'll talk to how they can reconfigure some of their parking to meet the code. So staff does not have an issue with their on-site ordinance for parking because of the capacity of the entire shopping center. The other variances that I will hit on briefly, because we want to turn it over to the public. If you turn to page 10 of 11, 10 and 11 are the last two pages of your staff report. They're asking to increase the allowable lot coverage of the site from 75% to 85%. And basically, the zoning ordinance defines lot coverage as the footprint of the building and the paved parking areas. So that's a 10% increase over what's there. But it's pretty consistent with what's already developed in that shopping center. This is the last outlot to be developed. Number 2 is to reduce the parking I mentioned from 41 to 31. But again, there's already an easement that allows shared parking among the different outlots. Number 3 is reducing some of the dimensions of the parking stalls by several feet. In some rows, it's by 2 feet. In other rows, it's by 1.5 feet, or half a foot. And basically, the applicant is claiming, or and staff is generally understanding this as well, that the overhang of the vehicle that's required will be met by the landscape areas, so cars can pull up to the curb, and that extra foot or half a foot is met through the landscaped area. So it's not a major, it's a small deviation from what we normally require, but it's pointed out in your report. Number 4 is to allow, it's a long paragraph, but basically what it says is the village code for a building setback in commercial in this district is 45 feet. And the parking regulations don't allow parking in the required front yard. Well, this is a development that predates the 45-foot setback and the parking regulation. So essentially obviously the parking in commercial areas is going to be in front of the building. And so there's no way to be 45 feet back with the entire parking lot. It would be a large grassy area. Number 5 is somewhat related, the minimum landscape yard or front yard adjacent to right-of-way, which is essentially going to be on Bell Road and upon the entrance to the south, the main entrance into the center, is a 30-foot minimum grassy landscape setback. They're trying to be consistent with the existing shopping center parking setback, as well as accommodating the future Will County right-of-way taking so that no loss of parking would occur on this property in the future. So that's where that number 5 comes from. Number 6 is a site vision where the trash enclosure, there's really not anywhere great to put the trash enclosure, but this, as we've had multiple discussions with the applicant, is situated in the corner of their site. It's attractive, it's got brick on it, it's well screened. To address any site distance issues, they have agreed with staff's suggestion to put a white stop bar and a stop sign in the drive aisle to the north. So basically controlling the intersection and stopping vehicles so that there's time for people to kind of see, and there should be plenty of setback. If the gates are kept closed on that trash enclosure, there should be enough room, and it should not be any kind of a safety issue. Anywhere you put that trash enclosure in the parking lot, it has to go somewhere. And this location made the most sense to allow the employees to get to it quickly and not have to drag garbage, and so forth through the drive-in, drive-up lane, and so forth. So that was the ideal of all the locations that were looked at. Where the trash enclosure is right now makes sense, and it's really not in front of any other business. There's a row of parking that will remain intact in front of Jimmy John's, in front of the Orient Cafe, in front of the private bank. Number 7 is to reduce the sign setback for a new monument sign up in the northeast corner of the site, which would be the new monument sign for Chipotle and Starbucks for this building. Normally it's a 15-foot setback. They're asking for a 10-foot setback at the east property line and a 4-foot setback from the north property line. Number 8 is the materials. In the color elevations you'll see on the board, you'll see most of the building is the brick to match the existing shopping center. The tan color is the ethos, or exterior insulating. It's a finishing system that's a man-made stucco, and it's pretty common for where they place signs, because as you remove commercial signs over time, you have to drill in and out of it, and you wouldn't want to do that in the brick or in the mortar. So, and it adds a contrast to the building. It's actually, there's more brick on the new building than what they have on some of the existing shopping centers. So if you look at the photographs that are the last page of your packet, and then look at the renderings, the color elevations, you'll see that the proposed new building has more brick on it than the current buildings. But architecturally, the building is consistent. Staff has no issues with the architecture of the building, the landscaping. There's some minor, very minor corrections and changes to the plans. The village engineer and the consulting engineer are still looking at the engineering, the civil engineering drawings that you don't get in your packet, but those are ongoing reviews that can occur after the site plan approval this evening, or the site plan consideration. With that, that concludes the staff report. And I'll turn it over to the applicant. Mr. Chair, if you want to have them add anything, introduce themselves, and then open it up for anybody in the public who would like to speak.
I'll make a motion. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to open the public hearing for case HG 1610 SP? A motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion by Don.
I'll second.
Have a second by Kevin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Okay, the motion carries. Public hearing is open. We'll hear from the petitioner at this time. If you'd like to speak, or if you have a presentation regarding the case.
I'll speak.
Okay, great.
My name is Tim Thanasaurus. I'm actually the property manager of the shopping center as well as the leasing agent, and I represent HMV LLC in this project. Truthfully, I don't have a whole lot to say about the presentation other than the fact that I want to thank Mike Schwartz for doing such an eloquent job of stating the case. You know, our plan has always been to bring this outlot in with a really good set of tenants, and so we worked very hard with the Economic Development Director, Jamie Patch, to bring Starbucks and Chipotle into this center, and we finally, after 2 years of negotiating leases with them and working through deals, we finally got them to say, we're coming home with Glen. So we've appreciated everything Mike has done, quite frankly, in expediting, obviously, this meeting, which we thank you guys for allowing us to do this. And you know, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about the concerns going forward.
All right. We can either take the questions now, or maybe we should hear from the public at this time.
Jim Soter from JW Stitch Architecture, architect of the building. Like Mike was going through, there's a lot of things here. A lot of impact on from the exterior and interior. Starbucks as well as Chipotle had much impact here. But in terms of the exterior, we wanted this, the owners wanted us to match in with existing. So, you know, I believe we've kind of matched this little element that appears in the whole thing. We're trying to match the brick. This is not a, we want to kind of blend it in, kind of make this kind of finish the last piece of the shopping center. It's not an exact copy of it because there's a couple elements in it that we don't really like. The base, some of the base of the columns, there's like a concrete block which just have like a screen of cement on top of it. It just becomes a maintenance issue. We've kind of replaced that with kind of a cultured stone in through here. But the driving colors, the roof colors, granted that there might be a couple out there, but we like to match the roof color of the shingles to the adjacent the outlet building. So a major effort was to kind of blend this building into the existing shopping center. Almost, you know, this element right there is almost a direct copy from the existing building. Site plan wise, you know, Starbucks, you know, the drive-through, what a big issue for them. It's a big moneymaker, and it's a big kind of drives the site, drives people inside. So we enter in through here. There's a directional sign here. There's a directional sign here. Directional sign here. We look for a kind of a established customer to come in through here, around the building, come through the drive-through, come out, you know, circle again, back to the main exit out the property. Here are the couple, like the six in front of the Starbucks. The Starbucks would be the lower tenant, and the Chipotle would be the upper tenant. There are the exterior seating there. The fence kind of includes here. This is the trash enclosure. It was not a best place to put it, you know, out of sight, out of mind, but you know, the reality is these are kind of a fast food you know, tenants. The building provides a kind of utility room where all the sprinkler heads and all that kind of good stuff will be held, as well as there's a sidewalk out to the back, and we're both tenants have a rear door and access to the trash enclosure. We've modified a couple of driveways to line up with existing driveways, as well as provide, you know, the handicap right in front, directly into the building, so that kind of really kind of completes the site plan. This is kind of like the existing property line. The takeaway is approximately 20 feet, but like I said, like Michael said, we conform to the takeaway, the proposed property lines. Any other questions?
Just a clarification, the drive-through, is that for Starbucks only? Will it be two? Will it be shared? I didn't understand that.
No, it will be exclusively for Starbucks.
Okay.
Chipotle will not have a drive-through.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just one announcement too for the record. Public notices were, I normally announce this, the applicant, I checked all the green cards, the certified mailing was done, all surrounding property owners within 250 feet did receive or were mailed notices. So we have proof of mailing is on file as part of the record. And also there is a sign, if you may have driven by the site, there is a public notice sign on the site. And then by state statute, there's a legal notice that was published in the paper, actually for the last meeting, the regular meeting on June 16th, and action was taken, as you know, at that meeting to table this matter to tonight's meeting. So all due notice was made for the public. So with that, if you want to open it for public comments.
Is there anyone else from the petitioner that was planning on speaking? No?
Please, anyone who would like to speak, we pick you up best if you come to the microphone.
Okay, we'll hear from the public at this time. And
Is there a motion?
there's other.
You made a motion.
We made the motion to open the public hearing.
Do we do that?
Yeah.
John Coy.
That was done.
Former Glen. I was just wondering, when Mike was talking, for some reason I thought he said that there's gonna be an entrance and exit on Bell Road, a new one? No? Because that, I didn't care for if there was gonna be a new one, because that takes away space, puts more people with ingress, egress, and, well, probable accidents.
As part of the presentation, was there anything that's going to be put on the screen with?
I have all of the
Show that-
drawings
show that
for reference if there are questions, but sometimes if I don't want to make the meeting go any longer than it needs to be, but there's a specific question about the architecture or a specific question about the site plan or landscaping, I can pull the drawings up and put them on the screen.
Good try, yeah.
I do have a follow-up question to the one I asked previously. The presentation seemed to indicate to me that a vehicle entering the drive-through would go around in a circle about twice from the time it entered till it got out. Did I misunderstand that?
I guess the nature of a drive-through, it has to go counterclockwise. In terms of, so this is actually, the menu boards are back here, right? Typically, and then once a menu is, once an order is given, we'll come around here and stack, the pickup window is right here. So this long line of drive-through, instead of having it, flipping it in front of the building, which, we didn't think it was to our advantage, to the store's advantage, is to have the entrance in the back and come around. You do come through here, and wrap around, and then you're out to the front.
Once you reach the outlot site, is it one complete circle or two?
It's just like a normal McDonald's, Con. One
Okay.
loop through, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
Or it's like the Wendy's here, except there's no north access or. Right.
You can't come in and go behind it and come in here.
Right. If you picture, say the Wendy's across the street, you close the east entrance at the Wendy's, it would be similar to that. Can you picture that? If you've been through that?
Yeah, no, I have.
Staff has reviewed the site circulation, and it's pretty standard for drive-through type facilities to have this type of circulation where you do have to come around the building to get in the line. I suppose there will be one person once in a while who will try and make a very, very sharp turn and try to get in, if the queue is short enough, to come in to the northernmost access. But typically, you do have to loop around the building to get behind the building, to get in line.
So, okay,
Oh,
go ahead.
I'm so
No, go
sorry.
ahead.
Are there any plans at the point where you move to enter the drive-through for a stop sign there?
The stop sign in what location?
Here's the
Look at
drive-through
that.
here,
Look at that.
coming off the road, right here. Before you turn, or before you go straight to go into,
That is something we can look at. Most of the issue for safety is having a stop sign heading for the drive aisle that's heading southbound near the trash enclosure. We did not feel that we can look at it. I don't think, that didn't stand out to us as a safety issue.
my concern is that sometimes traffic off of Bell Road entering into there is going a little bit quick, and that's almost kind of a hairpin kind of a turn to get in there to get to the drive-through.
Yeah, it would be close to, there's already a stop bar just to the north, off-site, to the north of the trash
Yes.
enclosure. So
Yes.
it would add, it's just adding one more stop. And I think sometimes it becomes overkill and people tend to not obey by them. We want them to obey the main stop there at the end of the aisle.
I mean, one of the things also on that issue of getting off of Bell Road, there's going to be directional signs that Starbucks is going to provide in the first entrance to bring people in and saying that this is the drive-through entrance. as opposed to doing what you're saying, it's coming all the way around in that hairpin turn, they'll hopefully take the first right to go into the center to come around the building and not have to do what you're suggesting. So hopefully with the directional
Just a
signs,
concern
we
looking
train.
at it.
That's that?
Just a concern.
Yeah, no, I like.
When you have someone desperate for a cup of coffee, you may not be paying attention.
So you're saying this trash enclosure, there's no better place for it, but isn't it blocking the view of Jimmy John's? Isn't it blocking the view?
No.
It's
not.
actually more in
It's-
line with the middle part of that retail building.
What
It's
is
not,
blocking is right here. If someone is coming down here, they are not, until they are past the trash enclosure, going to have a clear visual for the florist, and the tobacco shop is on the other side of
one
it.
of the things I'd like to distribute, I'm gonna give copies to the village board as well. You know, we did not include the civil engineering drawings in your packet because it would be twice as thick. But it's very technical. One of the drawings they did give us kind of late notice, I'm gonna distribute right
Okay.
now. And it's the site plan of the whole shopping center, with the proposed site plan superimposed on it. And I think that'll better answer your question. So, if you look at the site plan, and you can see on the the building with the number 3 is the building that we're looking at. And number 4 is the existing building with Jimmy John's and the private bank and
Mhm.
Orient Cafe.
So it's more in the middle?
It's more-
And it's actually past the edge
Yeah.
of Davidson's?
Yeah, it's actually beyond what was
Beyond
the
the
Firestone,
building.
what was
Okay.
the end unit
Okay.
of the main building.
Okay.
So that's a better drawing, and I'll have this, the village board members will get this as well.
Mike, can I ask you
Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak on this matter?
We asked you to come up just because the recording secretary, it's easier to hear people on the
Oh,
phone.
do you have
All
a
right,
name?
no problem. All right, I'm looking at a plan here.
Could you please state your name
Yeah.
for
John Coy.
Secretary?
I'm with Glen. Yeah, Paul Road, you guys, are they planning on putting in a sidewalk? Like out in front here, there was a sidewalk, they left out a piece, now that they reattached it, now they have an asphalt bike path going to 143rd Street. And eventually, we're gonna get sidewalks down Bell Road once they put in Bell Road.
My
I was in concrete business for 40-some years, and with that, every time we did a building, we had to put a sidewalk if it was by a street, whether it be a side street, main street, any street. Out here now in Will County, most of your subdivisions have sidewalks now, but they didn't when I moved out here. So
I'll try to answer
I
you.
think that somebody should be accountable here to say there's gonna be a sidewalk in front of that whole shopping center all the way up to 143rd Street here. But they're only building on a part of it, but some communities, one of them that I did some work for, the builder paid for half and the village paid for half, but at least they connected that whole 2 miles. And like I say, something should be put in that eventually or now, that sidewalk should be put in. Right out here, there's one too. And there's 2 people when I came here walking, so they are used.
So to try and answer your question, the village or development services director, I had a conversation with him, and I'm not as familiar with the Bell Road project as he is, but my understanding is that the Will County DOT has worked up engineering plans, preliminary engineering plans for the roadway that as of right now don't include a sidewalk. And it would become a policy decision for the village board whether or not to pay for, because that would be at village cost to put that in. To have them at this time put a sidewalk in that eventually might get torn out, is probably premature, but it would be something the village board could consider if they want this one little segment of sidewalk. You know, there are creative ways to do like cash in lieu or something like that, so eventually the sidewalk could, you know, their little proportionate share would be paid for. But ultimately, in the big picture, that would ideally be done as part of one roadway project.
Right, when I remember, and my memory isn't that great, but I thought that we were gonna put in the sidewalks on Bell Road from 159th when they started on it supposedly this year. Down Bell Road, we were gonna put them on the west side of Bell Road sidewalks.
It's possible, I don't know the
Because they're
history.
gonna do it in 3 phases, from 159th to something, and then 161st to 143rd, and then north.
It's possible that there was early discussions, but I know each year as we get further along, Will County, you know, even 5 years ago, I don't know if they were as far along as they are today in terms of the design work and the funding for the whole overall Bell Road project. So that's what I was told by our Development Services Director. And that would be something, for a policy decision for the village board. But as of right now, my understanding of it is that the design plans do not include a sidewalk.
It's like I say, there's a lot of people walking the streets, and it's ridiculous, you know, and some of them might die one of these days, and it's crazy, but anyway. All right, and I suggest that we put them in, it's just my suggestion.
That's a good point. I think it should be followed through with the final plan on both sides.
But I do understand not doing little pieces when they're gonna come in and do the whole road.
Bell Road's gonna get widened and we're gonna pay to have.
But I
something
do
that's torn
think
out 5 years from
You
now,
need
doesn't
to talk
make
about it
sense.
when they do the road, because I
Yeah.
agree with John, I think
It's-
there should
most
be
definitely.
sidewalks.
It's a,
Most of-
probably a bigger picture policy decision more for the village board than the plan commission at this point, because it's a major multi-property roadway project. And that would be a decision because the cost would be to the village for putting in sidewalks. And so, it would decision, and most of this area is, for the most part, there are some parcels still undeveloped, like this outlot. But for the most part, most of the properties are already developed, so you wouldn't have a developer on the hook, as they say, to put a sidewalk in. So, you know, it becomes more of a village policy decision on sidewalks, and that's our Mike Salamovich, our Development Services Director, and the county DOT would have to sit down and discuss that.
Well, it is part of the plan for 159th, and this cost is split. So that's
Different
state,
level of,
right.
different level of
Different
government.
level of government.
Same level of safety.
Yeah,
Right. I'm a big advocate of sidewalks myself, but again, it becomes a policy decision.
When you consider the workman's well, the trailways have been considered quite, quite important throughout the village. It's considered that sidewalks would be an extension of that. Okay, was there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak on this? Hearing none, I ask for a motion to close the public hearing for case HG 1610-SP.
I move to close the public portion of the hearing.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The motion carries, public hearing is closed. Is there any discussion by the plan commission? Any questions? No questions from Mike or the applicant?
I can see there's no better place than this trash and this isn't a good one either.
What was the height? What was the height of that?
There is an elevation of the trash enclosure in your packet.
You're at 6 feet?
Okay.
That's probably right.
Oh, that's applicant.
Me too.
Oh, there we go, okay.
Over,
Yeah,
the overall height is 6 feet 10 inches. But again, it's stepped back because of the gates have to swing open. The access point to the trash enclosure is pushed back enough that it's not right up to the intersection. They have to be able to back a truck or pull a truck forward if it's an overhead lift.
Is
Um,
the, I'm sorry.
is that-
Is the option available for this trash enclosure to have a sliding door versus a swinging door?
I have not seen anything like that.
A lot of
I
truck yards
defer to
have
the
them.
architect.
There'll be room on this one to slide. I don't think the end one, there's actually a kind of a two gates. There's one to the south and one to the west. The west one could possibly have one. The one, the south one could have, the one to the west one, I don't think there's enough, wall space there to slide it. That would probably extend into the drive aisle too.
No, this is the one I'm.
Kevin, any questions?
I do have a question or suggestion on the drive-through. You're showing it looks like a menu board and then a speaker box at the curve, am I correct? Could there maybe be a portable trash receptacle that would be put there to deposit
Throw stuff in, yeah, that's
Great idea.
On the turn?
on the turn,
thought
as
people
well
just-
as if you look further to the first, second, and third car, just past the
These
pickup
would be the
window.
waiting spaces where people might be cleaning the car up, just to.
Yes, and dumping the garbage into the parking lot.
It would have to be
Um,
a passenger.
Certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I would take a look at probably 2, maybe 3 opportunities to have a disposable where people can out the window and get rid of the
Yeah,
trash
that's a
instead
great
of
idea.
tossing it in the parking lot.
Could get everyone to do that at home, drive-throughs, that would be a great idea, I like it.
Well, I know they used to do it at the Dunkin' Donuts here, and suddenly it's gone, and you
It
see
has like a
piles
long
of
neck to it,
cash.
so you didn't have to
Yes.
throw yourself out the window.
It's
Yeah, I
almost
agree
like a
with you.
postage box,
Yeah, that's
where
right, that's right.
it's,
Yeah, that's a great idea. I don't think-
I'd like to probably see it at the curve and after the pickup window.
I think, the location would
Yeah.
make it, that'd be important, because otherwise it would be bringing garbage to the site, not just disposing of garbage generated by the site.
Uh-huh.
Not people just emptying out their cars and trucks.
Yeah, what we said is like
Excess
you get
garbage.
something in a bag, someplace, and you pick it up at the pickup window, someplace you throw away that bag besides out the window.
Yeah,
Or somewhere on site.
yeah. I mean, that lane is long enough with a queue for 7 cars. There's enough room for probably 2 separate trash receptacles that would ease the maintenance of the parking lot overall.
Would we, I don't know if that would be something that could be a motion or something that's a recommendation.
I mean, we're still doing, staff is still doing technical review. The applicant has verbally indicated they would provide something. I don't know if something like that would rise to the level of another condition. If you feel strongly about it, you can certainly add that, but it's totally up to you. And we would.
I think it would be a community-friendly approach for them to voluntarily provide that.
I like the idea.
So you're looking for a minimum of one or two, depending on what would
Yes.
work best with the
One
site.
or 2, whatever would work best for the sites, and,
And Commissioner
To
Freeman,
match.
what we would do is make that,
yeah,
it's on record, and what we would do is prior to the permit drawings being approved, we would look for that to be included in the site plan to make sure that that's taken care of.
The only thing that I've ever had pushback from the people from Starbucks is smell. They just don't like to have their customers smelling odors like garbage. So I have to defer a little bit as to location, but in terms of general, you're right, it helps us leave our parking lot from having fun. People don't buy as much, I suppose, when they smell a bad, foul tasting, smell. So I just
So
have to
then
defer.
put it after the menu board.
Maybe, yeah, after they order.
After they've already ordered.
Anything else?
I don't. No, thank you.
Don, any other questions for you?
No, just comment, I think our staff has done an excellent job in adequately and completely informing us of all of the conditions on this, and this is just going to be a great addition to the community.
And welcome to a new business.
Two?
Two new businesses.
No, two, that's it.
We have a birthday parade, birthday.
Okay.
If there's no more questions, that commission, is there a motion for this agenda item?
We have to read it. Oh, I have.
That's a long motion.
Yes,
It's not written as a motion, so I recognize it.
What's this other sheet?
I will if you,
Is there a synopsis?
you've got it.
Okay. First motion I make, I move to adopt staff's findings as the findings of the Plan Commission and to recommend to the village board approval of an amendment to the special use permit, which was approved under Village of Homer Glen ordinance number 03-003, section 220-903C1 of the code, to grant a major change to the Homer Town Square Plan Development, section 220-1209D of the code, including approval of a preliminary final development plan for Lot 3 in the Homer Town Square subdivision, section 220-902C, and section 220-902D of the code, including certain variations subject to the following conditions. First, subject to village staff's technical review, preliminary lighting and approval of all required plans, and two, subject to the property owner's submittal of a plat of re-subdivision for the Homer Town Square subdivision prior to the village issuing the first occupancy permit for the proposed commercial building on Lot 3 for certain real property, which is Zone C-3, General Business District, and is generally located on the west side of Bell Road, north of 143rd Street in Homer Glen, Illinois. Case number HG-1610-SP, HNB LLC. And should we do motion one for a vote and separate it from the other two? Okay.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
Second from Glen. Candace, could you please call the roll?
Sure can. Kevin O'Donnell,
Yes.
Lynn McGarry,
Yes.
Chris Lacacious, Eileen Creamer,
Yes.
Don Mitchell,
Yes.
Rock Falcon.
Can you have the names of those businesses put on any of this paperwork? I look at all this, I don't see the name of both these
It's inside,
and
it's in the staff report.
It's within the staff report. Yes. It is within the staff report. And that is public.
Yeah, and just to let everyone know, they're approving a site plan for a building for two tenants. So we hope those tenants stay there a long time, but it certainly could be other tenants in the future.
Okay, we have, first motion passed. We have a motion for the number two.
For motion number 2, I move to adopt staff's findings, the findings of the Plan Commission, and to recommend to the village board approval of a special use permit for a drive-through establishment associated with the permitted use for Lot 3 in the Homer Town Square subdivision, Section 220, Attachment 2, Table 2A of the code, for certain real property which is Zone C3, General Business District, and is generally located on the west side of Bell Road, north of 143rd Street, in Homer Glen, Illinois. Case number HG 1610SP, H&B LLC.
We have a motion by Lynn. Yes, second.
I'll second it.
Second by Eileen. Candace, could you call the roll, please?
Chris Lucasius, Lynn McGarry,
Yes.
Eileen Trimmer,
Yes.
Don Mitchell,
Yes.
Rob Fackel, Kevin Rodach.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Thank you. Is there a motion for the third item on the agenda? No, I'm just looking this way or that way.
I will move
Is there a third?
to adopt staff's findings as the findings of the Plan Commission and to recommend to the village board approval of a special use permit for outdoor seating associated with 2 permitted restaurants. Section 220, Attachment 2, Table 2A of the code, for certain real property which is Zone C3 General Business District and is generally located on the west side of Bell Road, north of 143rd Street in Homer Glen, Illinois. Case number HG-1610-SP H&B LLC.
Thank you. We have a motion by Don. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second. Kevin. Candace, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Don Mitchell,
Yes.
Rob Fackel, Kevin O'Donnell,
Yes.
Lynn McGarry,
Yes.
Chris Lucasius, Eileen Trimmer.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. So motion carries, and we'll be right after this meeting.
We'll make an announcement. We'll let you know that your agenda item is on this evening's special village board meeting agenda. Thank you.
We have the next item for tonight's meeting is other new business, and there is no other new business. Awareness, nothing. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
This motion, Lynn,
Second.
second by Don. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries.